footprint. ownCloud helps enterprises concerned about sensitive data leakage to deliver a secure file sync and share solution on your storage inside of your data center. And unlike other options on the market, ownCloud enables you to create the solution completely on-site, using entirely your own app servers, database servers, and whatever storage of your choice. And then from there, you can access that data using the ownCloud web client or desktop clients for Linux, Mac, and Windows, or mobile clients for iOS and Android, as well as other clients for desktop or mobile that adhere to the WebDAV standard. So ownCloud integrates with the IT infrastructure that you already have in place as well, rather than making you create an additional silo of data or information that you have to manage separately. And ownCloud is entirely extensible through open APIs so that it can be modified or integrated with tools that you already have in place. ownCloud has a plugin infrastructure so you can create apps or plugins that run on top of ownCloud to add functionality and extend its existing feature set. And Bob's going to show you a little bit of that stuff in a moment. And at the end of the day, ownCloud delivers the seamless, easy-to-use access to sensitive data that your users have come to expect from the consumer-grade public cloud options on the market. So when you think of ownCloud, think on-premise, flexible, extensible, and with your company data staying within your control. So now let me turn it over to my colleague, Bob Boulay, who's going to walk us through the process of setting up an ownCloud proof of concept. Bob, take it away.
Thanks, Luke. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're located. I'm going to be bringing you through the elements of a successful ownCloud proof of concept. But I wanted to start off with an overview of what those elements are. And obviously, when you think about a proof of concept and building out a proof of concept for a file sync and share solution, you start off with the ownCloud server. This is really where all of your data is stored. You're serving up the web application for the users that choose to interact via the web browser. This is also where the database is. So for a proof of concept, that ownCloud server is a critical piece of infrastructure that we're going to want to make sure is set up correctly and is in place before we turn our end users loose on this. The other two pieces here obviously are the endpoints. Now obviously the one endpoint is the web browser, which users will be able to interface with the service through the web browser. But the other two endpoints are the mobile devices, iOS and Android, along with the desktop synchronization clients that are offered by ownCloud that cover Windows, Mac, and Linux desktops, making it simple for customers or users to simply save a file to a directory and have it automatically synchronized to that ownCloud server, making it available on their iOS device or via the web browser. So those are the three elements of the POC that we want to make sure we keep as sort of a backdrop as we go through some of the tactics and some of the details around setting this up. Now, some of the key considerations for your POC, and again, this is sort of a bulleted list here that I want to bring everyone through and make sure that we're at least thinking about most of these things before we get started. The first, obviously, and it seems fairly rudimentary, is who's going to be part of this POC? Have we identified a target group or a target subset of our users that are going to go ahead and participate? Do we have a set of goals in mind? So what are the success criteria around this? Now, those are very business-centric types of items to be thinking about. However, in order to make sure that the technology lines up properly, these are things that we want to think through with our internal business partners before we get started. Then we get into the technology pieces. So how are we going to deploy the ownCloud server? And for most of you, it'll come down to a choice of either on a physical box or inside of a virtual machine. And for those of you deploying inside of a virtual machine, the ownCloud appliance then becomes a potential option for you for this particular deployment. We also have to make a decision around the database. And again, this could be largely driven by a standard set within your organization, but we have a lot of flexibility here, whether it be MySQL, PostgreSQL, or SQL Server. We're going to be able to choose which database platform we're going to use. And ultimately, this could involve a new instance that we're going to stand up, or it could be simply connecting into an existing instance of one of these databases running inside of your enterprise. The next piece we want to think about is storage and file access. Do we have an existing file server that you want to integrate, or do you have existing mount points, whether it be, some sort of file server system that's already in place that you want to make access available as part of this POC? Do you have some other sort of file sync and share technology that you've used previous to this that you want to go ahead and make it simple for users to, without having to move all their files over, actually go ahead and access that information? So that's all going to be available as part of the POC, but it's something that we want to start thinking about now. External access. So what external access do you as the administrator want to allow as part of this POC? As we talked about, the three main endpoints here are the browser, the mobile clients, and the synchronization client that will sit on somebody's desktop or laptop machine. So do we want to allow all three? Do we want to limit? Really thinking that piece of it through as well. Then we want to look at things like user volume and user geographies. We have users all in one spot, which makes it somewhat easier. Do we have users spread across multiple offices? And again, not a problem in terms of being able to make the application available to remote users, just something that you want to think through as early on in the process as possible. And then obviously user volume ties back into things like storage configurations and sizing of the ownCloud server. And then lastly, and I didn't put it lastly on purpose, I mean obviously this is a very, very key element here, is security. More often than not, you can find yourself, 3/4 of the way down the road of an implementation only to find a security blocker. So our advice is to get those security business partners involved as quickly as, or as early in the process as possible. Now, once we've sort of gone through those things and sort of checked off those boxes and understand what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it, we now get into sort of the tactical part of the deployment, which is the installation of ownCloud. Now, obviously, I'd mentioned earlier that you really have two options here. One is to actually pull the ownCloud binaries from our website and actually install them on a physical machine, installing the database and making storage available to the ownCloud server. If you're choosing to do it on a physical server, you want to do those things, again, very, very straightforward. If for some reason you're choosing to deploy on a virtual machine, we actually have a pre-configured virtual appliance that you can download, import into the hypervisor of your choice, and then ultimately configure it for your POC once it's installed. So this basically saves you a couple of steps in terms of configuring the database because it already has a MySQL instance installed in it, and a lot of the setup process in terms of laying down an operating system and things of that nature are already done for you if you choose the virtual appliance. Now, the other thing that I'll recommend before you go forward with any sort of installation steps is actually go out to the ownCloud.com site and review the doc set. We have a complete doc set right online that will make sure that you sort of have all of the prerequisites installed if you choose to sort of do this manually or by hand, having all the prerequisites installed and give you all the information you need to actually have a successful install on the ownCloud server side. Now, once you've got the ownCloud server stood up and running, the next piece is actually the initial configuration. Now, that initial configuration involves setting up an admin username and password, telling the ownCloud server where its root storage is going to be, so where its core storage is going to be located. That could be, a network share, it could be a simple mount point on the ownCloud server itself, but you'll want to tell it where that data folder is going to live. And then obviously making that database selection, and then ultimately giving the database username and password, giving the database a name. We'll actually go out and create that database for you, but also what database host would you like to use? In this case here, it simply defaults to localhost because it assumes you've got the database local. If you don't, you simply want to plug in the fully qualified domain name or the IP address of the database host before you click Finish Setup, and it will go out and create that database as well. Now, once you have this configured, you've got an admin account set up, you've got your data storage set, you've got your database set, the next piece that you're going to do here is come in and start enabling applications. And this is really sort of where the power of ownCloud comes in and its extensibility, as Luke had mentioned earlier. We've got all of these plugins or these applications that will help you to sort of shape and mold what that user experience is going to look like. What features do you want to turn on or turn off as part of the ownCloud experience for your users? So things like turning on the LDAP backend, which is going to make it easy for you if you've got all of your users for the POC in a single group in LDAP, simply plugging in and querying on that group will prevent you from having to go through and actually create users one by one. Obviously doing things like enabling sharing and allowing users to share with one another and enabling them to share both internal to ownCloud or externally through emailed links. These are all things that you're going to be able to control through configuring and enabling the various applications. The other two pieces here are the share log and the audit log info. Again, another key differentiator here with ownCloud is that ability to have everything on-premise, but understand exactly who is doing what to which files, who's sharing with whom, who has access, and who is actually editing, modifying, and synchronizing the various files in the deployment. So again, going through this particular apps page is a key aspect to actually shaping that user experience, both for yourself as an administrator and for your end users. Now, I chose connecting the appliance or the application to LDAP or Active Directory because this seems to be the most popular, in terms of an application that is turned on almost all the time, because people simply don't want to manage individual users. They're already doing it in one spot in most cases, whether it be some form of open source LDAP directory application they're using or Microsoft's Active Directory. They want to be able to point at that directory server, grab a specific group that they've created over there, and ultimately bring those users in. That's something that's very simple and easy to do here with ownCloud. A simple query of the domain, a simple query of a group, and the members of that group will go ahead and pull that information into ownCloud and make it so that those users now will have access based on the parameters that you've set up in the LDAP or in the Active Directory to actually access ownCloud. So it makes it nice and straightforward and simple to be able to go ahead and basically bring those users in as part of this POC. And then, once you've got your users configured, you've got your applications configured, now it's time to do things like set some basic policies. So, and I've just provided some examples here for you as sort of some food for thought. For example, do I want to enable resharing? So if a user shares a file with, user A shares a file with user B, should user B be able to reshare that file with user C? These are all concerns or considerations that you want to make sure you think through before you turn these things on or off. Do you want to allow your users to mount their own external storage? Or do you want the admin to actually control this? So when it comes to external storage or mount points like FTP, individual accounts inside of a file share or a file server, do you want to allow the end user to be able to mount that, or would you rather have the admin mount that for the individual end user and control who has access to it? And again, another consideration. Allowing links or sharing via links, emailing data potentially outside the company. Do you want to allow for that? Things like enable file versioning. One of the really nice features of ownCloud is this ability to go ahead and actually version files. However, you have to account for that in your storage plan because there is going to be some additional storage associated with that as well. And then ultimately, do you want to set quotas? Quotas for storage. How much storage do you have available? How much do you anticipate using? So these are all policies that you want to think through and consider. Now we transition away from the server itself and we move into the endpoints. Now obviously the one endpoint that you get by default is the browser interface. Once you've stood up the ownCloud server and you make port 80 or whatever port you decide to assign to that available, it will go ahead and be available to those end users once you publish the URL. Excuse me. But the other two pieces that we want to talk about here are the desktop client and the mobile apps. So again, our desktop client will allow the user to go ahead and actually have automatic synchronization up to the ownCloud server for a directory or a set of directories that they deem necessary. So if they have a mount point to a file share on their desktop, they could ultimately choose to go ahead and synchronize that through the desktop client. If they've got a basic home directory, they could go ahead and actually have that synchronized. And what that does, obviously, is it gives them access to their files now through the other two endpoints. So not only just at their desktop, but it will also synchronize up to the server and then push the data down to whomever, any changes they make to those files, push that data down to the users that they've shared that information with that may also be running the desktop client. So again, doing this, setting this up, how you want this to look, do you want to give end users access to this, are all considerations for your proof of concept. And then you've got that third endpoint, which is the mobile client. Now, we offer mobile clients on iOS and Android devices, and again, you're sort of completing that access anywhere experience for your users. You're giving them the ability to basically get access to those files from those smartphones, from those tablet devices, and ultimately extending the reach of ownCloud. You want to think carefully about whether or not you want to do that. And this is why I always talk about getting security involved, and do you want to be able to make that available? And if not, again, these are all things where the product is very modular, and we can actually turn certain things on and turn certain things off. So again, we can customize that implementation to meet your needs. And then the other piece here that's interesting, and I brought this in here because it's something that we see quite a bit. A lot of times our users will already have technology in place using something like a WebDAV client to do some synchronization, especially if you're looking at ownCloud as a potential replacement for another file sync and share technology. We will allow you to go ahead and connect to the ownCloud server via some generic WebDAV calls. You can use third-party WebDAV clients to go ahead and access, and typically that's either done from the mobile device or the desktop. I threw an example in there of GoodReader on the iOS side, or something like BestSync on the Windows side. So again, all options as part of your ownCloud POC. You simply make the decision as to whether or not you want to allow access for these types of things. Now, once you've gone through and followed those steps and really sort of thought through those bits and pieces, the next piece is obviously being up and running. So now your ownCloud system is up and running, users are functional on the system, everything is set to go. Some things to consider on an ongoing basis, and we like to point these things out just based on the experience that we've had in the past. You've set an initial policy for sharing and security. Does that need to change at all? Do you find users getting access to files that they shouldn't? So it's something that you want to visit when you transition from the POC to the actual deployment phase. Do you want to revisit that as part of the overall ownCloud policy? User data storage. A lot of times you go into these things not really knowing how much data a user is going to use or how much storage a user is going to access. Ultimately going through the process of monitoring that and seeing if you've allocated enough. Shared folders and the scale of deployment. Again, shared folders are, a situation where if a user shares an entire folder out to a group of people, are they doing something that they shouldn't? Do we need to monitor that? Do we need to put some security policies in place? The scale of your deployment, again, have you accessed or have you allocated enough resources on the ownCloud server? Do you have enough storage? And then ultimately user feedback. As you get feedback from users as the administrator and the point person for this POC, we'd love to have you funnel that feedback directly to us as well so we could partner with you to help make that user experience as easy and simple as possible. And then work with ownCloud. The bottom line here, guys, is that we're happy to help when you engage with us as part of a POC offering. We're willing to jump in and support you, help you, walk you through sort of some of the pieces that we talked about here today, give you some insight in terms of what peers in your industry may have done in terms of getting past some of those hurdles. So again, feel free to reach out to us and make sure you work directly with us. To summarize, And I think, to sort of wrap this particular piece of the webinar up, obviously, as Luke brought us through earlier, solving that Dropbox problem, so getting control back of the files, of the data, not allowing users to sort of put things out there that if they choose to leave the company, those files are lost. Secure on-site enterprise file sync and share. Again, guys, remember, you're rolling out an enterprise class solution. This is a solution that not only is going to meet the needs of your security people and for you as an IT administrator, allowing you to keep all that data on premise, but we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't offer your end users that exact same experience. So they had a pleasant experience. They were able to access their information. As I think we demonstrated here today, easy to set up and install POC. This really is not that difficult. Most of these things, if you've sort of done the right planning, the actual deployment of this thing from the server side can take place in 30 to 45 minutes. It's simply not that difficult. And again, we've attempted to demonstrate the providing users with comprehensive file access, simple to integrate with your current directory structure. But I think one of the things we want to make sure you take away from this as well is we're here to help. So we want to make sure that if you stumble, if you have problems, questions, concerns, please come back. We'll help you out. We'll make sure you get up and running. So I think now what we're going to do is we're going to pause for some questions. And you'll have to bear with me for a second as I go through and filter through some of the questions. Now, guys, while I'm doing that, just keep in mind, if for some reason you don't have your question answered, we will follow up with you on a one-on-one basis. So let's see here. When is MS SQL Server support coming? Is it that in a point release for version 5? That is to be available for the Community Edition. Well, guys, that's a great question. Right now, as you know, the Community Edition of ownCloud 5 is out there now. Our intention is to make SQL Server available as an officially supported platform as part of the ownCloud 5 Enterprise release. So once we've finished our QA, once we've sort of done all of the validation testing and are ready to release it to our enterprise customers, that's when SQL Server will be available. Let's see here. The next question. Does Community Edition logs access which files and when, who shared this file, etc.? Guys, that is actually a feature of the Enterprise Edition exclusively. So what we're doing here is we're providing, and what you'll see us do over the course of time for our enterprise customers is provide a series of enterprise tools. And that's ultimately what we're looking to do here is give our enterprise customers that level of enterprise logging. And that actually is something, guys, as you can see here, that's going to be a topic for one of our next webinars that we'll hope you'll attend on the 23rd, which is actually going to get into some of the logging and using it with some of the logging tools. So the next question I got here is, and I actually want to toss this over to Luke, if possible. If I want to start a POC at my company, can ownCloud help me? Luke, do you want to provide a little color commentary on that?
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons we're here. So there's as you can see on the screen right now, there's a way to contact us here, either with the sales@owncloud.com email or give us a call at 877-394-2030. We would love to help you. It's one of the things we do as a company. We've helped large and small organizations be successful with ownCloud by helping them through the POC process.
Excellent, excellent, great. Okay, so the next question I got in the queue here, guys, is there any plan to encrypt the data on the server side, meaning today that ownCloud admin has access to user data? Guys, that's an excellent question, and the short answer there is absolutely. As part of the ownCloud Enterprise Edition, we're going to be releasing, and this is going to be an ownCloud 5, the Enterprise Edition, the server-side encryption. So we're going to add that to the product, and again, yet another sort of enterprise feature and tool that we want to give to that enterprise class user of the product. Let me see here. Can you discuss the process to expose access via the internet? What ports to be forwarded, etc.? That is an excellent question. And guys, this is really where we start getting into bringing your security people into the POC. Now, typically speaking, guys, this ownCloud is a simple N-tier web application. So out of the box, it's going to be addressed via port 80. So, this is something that can be changed for security reasons if you want. And essentially, you'd be doing that in the actual web server tool that you wind up using, whether it be Apache, IIS, Nginx, or something along those lines. But generally speaking, you'd set that port and actually forward that through your firewall to the ownCloud server. Now, some folks will change it from port 80 for security purposes. That's certainly something that you can do. Again, this is a great example of if you're starting a POC and you're looking for sort of a trusted advisor to give you a hand, let us know. We'll certainly be willing to sort of walk you through those steps and make sure that this thing gets up and running correctly. The next question I got was, can we assign multiple LDAP sources? That is a great question, and it brings up sort of the multi-tenant aspects of ownCloud. So right now in the current enterprise version, you cannot. However, in ownCloud 5, when we release the enterprise version of ownCloud 5, one of the multi-tenant aspects of that new release is going to be multiple LDAP sources. So the answer there is yes, you will be able to do that as part of the ownCloud 5.0 enterprise release. You mentioned configuration file scripting. Is there a document for Windows client configuration scripting? Guys, that's a great question. So the question I got here is, can I script the configuration of the actual client-side pieces? And so, guys, bear in mind that we don't necessarily have a document. Actually, I shouldn't say that. We do have, on the documentation site, we have a developer's manual that's out there that you can look at specifically for the client. Now, the client is made up of a series of configuration files. So in a Windows environment, being able to modify those configuration files through a PowerShell script is very simple. So if you go out to the ownCloud website, ownCloud.com, and look at the documentation around the client-side configuration files, you'll see sort of where those live, what parameters are out there, and then ultimately it's just simply a matter of writing a script and pushing it out there through your distribution channel, whether it be a Windows-based distribution channel or an open source-based distribution channel, to go ahead and update those files. So it is very, very simple to do. So guys, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I think that any questions that continue to come in, we certainly will be back to you on a one-on-one basis to make sure you get answers, so you'll have an avenue. But if you do have any additional questions, or post-webinar you have questions or concerns, please use the contact information that's currently displayed on the screen. Reach out to us directly. We'd be more than happy to go ahead and set up a time to talk to you, sit down with you and actually help you plan your POC. Make sure you've sort of dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's as it relates to rolling out the best overall end user experience. Luke, do you have any other thoughts before I go ahead and wrap it up?
No, good stuff, Bob. Thanks for the rundown there, and like just to echo what Bob said, please do reach out to us. We'd love to help. Looking forward to talking to you guys and looking through your individual situations and finding out how we can help there. So, thanks, Bob.
All right, guys. Guys, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to spend with us today, and look forward to seeing you all again on April 23rd at the next webinar. Talk to you real soon. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.